Hello, before I continue, I must clear one thing up. That when I speak of the Jedi, I do not mean the galactic one from the Star Wars movie. In fact, the real Jedi are millennia old, and the name comes from ancient Egypt, which was their last stand. As I've said before, the prequels and everything has already happened. When they speak of the myth, because some people have thought I am part of the temple of the Jedi Order. Now that order tells us to use one of these and even though we put so much effort into putting most and all our ideals and values within the saga, as well as the story and the myth, which is true, some myths can be true. This Jedi is from the Knights Templar, were not holy. In fact, the Holy Grail, by searching, would find out how unholy it was. But is from the Egyptian mystery schools back in the day. Now this is from a lost world. In our own libraries, we have the Library of the First Knowledge, or the Lost Knowledge. This is an archive from the time before a cataclysm. And we see this cataclysm happen in many stories, and the many flood stories told across the world, and Atlantis and things like that. But also Star Wars is the first telling of the story as well. The first telling was again by that same group who basically were the sentinels that were still left in their positions while the order fell and a cataclysm took place, and they were told to mingle with the people and married and became renowned families across Europe, who once they got to meet and everything, they started the Knights Templar in order to get into the vaults of the Vatican, in which they did so, retrieving and collecting many documents and artifacts, and were also caught and tried and executed. But Friday the 13th, which we see as the unlucky day, is that remembrance of them, because they were about to bring the truth to the world that Jesus was just one of them. I mean, I don't mind people using the Jedi name. I mean, what's in a name? There's so many names from all different cultures for the same people, the guardians of the ancient past, a time before gods and religion took control of people's minds. Organisations like the Temple of the Jedi Force, or whatever it's called, they follow all the words from the books and believe the myth of the Djedi, the Djedi of by Joseph Campbell. But Joseph Campbell was an academic, he was a scientist, and that wasn't just a myth he was on about, because how can it be a myth when you're talking about a hero's journey? That's not a myth, because we know about the hero's journey from way back, from the classic Greek stories, and we can still see those classic Greek stories in black and white. So they're no longer myth, they're actual fact. By using the character story as the reference for your whole organisation, and even though you have had people from our own community, much larger, much older, much more pre-Star Wars than you can actually even believe, know of the golden era and the ages of man. The scientists are discovering this in poles, doing ice core samples, finding out about 10,500 BC something happened, a cataclysm happened. We don't know all the details, and which I wouldn't give out anyway. But some of that story had to be created that way because of people's views still today. Good versus evil. That is the story that religion has brought you. Religion has brought evil into the world. It's brought evil as an entity. Evil is not an entity. It is a choice. Always has been a choice. Just like there's not two sides of the Force. The Force is one. You help create the universe. The cosmic force makes up 98% of the whole universe, and Mother Nature is another part of that cosmic force.
Same time. I mean, I believe something's out there, I just don't know what it is. I have no idea, or what I dare to guess, but I do know that religions aren't based on it. They're human psychological needs that have been put together mostly to create a society. Star Wars and Indiana Jones were basically put together, especially Star Wars, more than Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones was just done for fun, to entertain people. And there were some messages in there about, you know, archaeology, and also about what we believe in terms of myths and that sort of thing. But the real one is Star Wars, and that was done in the same vein that what I was saying about the patron creates the propaganda, and what I wanted to do was go back to some of the older propaganda, which was consistent through all of the societies, which is mythology, but to say, what did they all believe? Because they were all, this propaganda was created independently.
Yeah. Where did the idea of force come from?
The whole thing in Star Wars was to take, ideas, psychological ideas, from social issues, political issues, spiritual issues, and condense them down into an easy to tell story of those stories. The Force basically came from going all around the world, all through time, finding the similarities, and then creating an easy to deal with metaphor for what religion is. And the point is that in the very beginning, when you have people worshiping rocks and deer, they called it life force. They called it the Force. Right. That's what it was. And so where did the name come from? It came from basically life force. Yeah. And those are the things that make people say, hey, this is why we believe this stuff. And again, the crudest part of that, in terms of the religious, spiritual thing, is some people have taken those ideas and then distorted them, and you end up in a cult where they're using the psychological tools to make you adhere to their society, and part of it is they have to keep it closed.
And to them.
And to them. But it's the same thing. I mean, and again, you go through history, you know, and even though in most cases you had open societies, but they really weren't, because let's face it, you were going to get killed if you go outside the wall, so let's build a wall around the whole thing so we can defend ourselves. So they were self-fulfilling, you know, isolated human events. And the idea that some of us think we're really great people, but in the real world we're not. We're terrible people. Make bad choices, but you run your life in a very selfish way, and you think you're doing good when you're actually not. And at the same time, it's you know, how do democracies turn back into dictatorships? Why do people who have the power to have the freedom and everything turn it over to somebody who's going to take it all away from them? It's happened through history forever and ever, and all Star Wars is a way of updating that idea to say, watch out, because there are people out there who don't play by the rules, and if you're not careful, you're going to lose all your freedom. And at the same time, those people who may not play by the rules because they're selfish and greedy turn themselves into evil people. who don't care about other people.
As you'll see in these upcoming films, this is what it's all about. But they choose to believe things like, there is no emotion, there is peace. That doesn't make no sense. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. Well, obviously, there is ignorance, because the sample of the Jedi Order are pure ignorance, and they are the perfect examples of why most of the world think Americans are dumb, stupid, ignorant people. Mainly because a lot of them are, but there's a lot of them that aren't, and it just makes them a bad name for those. I've got a lot of American colleagues and friends, and even though one of our own actually adjudicated your charity, and has even been on the side, and has even gave you the myth stories himself.